Hey guys, thank you for stopping by. In the previous video, we received a studio tour of one design office from one of the company's founders, Samson. After that studio tour, we actually sat down, myself, Samson, and his co-founder, John. We sat down and talked about things like the story of one design office, where they're at now, some of their ideology, how they work as a truly multidisciplinary design firm, and also what's in the works for them in the future. Now, before we start the video, I want to have a chat to you guys about something. So recently, I've been talking a lot with you guys on Instagram and other social platforms about the idea of starting a podcast. It's an idea that I've sort of toyed with for a while, because I think I really like long form discussion, and I'm a big fan of podcasting as a medium. You know, just from communicating with you guys, engaging interest, there does seem to be some interest there for a podcast, but obviously I have concerns as well. About whether you guys would be interested. Whether you guys would listen, whether I'd be able to produce content for you guys that you would be interested in. So I'm still in that process of sort of thinking about it, and I just want to gauge further from you guys what you think about me starting a podcast. So please leave a comment or send me a message and let me know. I'd love to keep the conversation going. But for now, this is one design office.
I think I want to start by just sort of trying to understand, the story behind ODO, right? How did this come about? And what the stories behind yourselves as well as the directors.
Sure. So ODO stands for One Design Office, and I guess Sam and I started the business five years ago. We just turned 5 last week, but we started with this vision. We started with this vision of, we both come from quite diverse design backgrounds. We've delved in everything from architecture to interior, product design, branding. So having experienced all that, we were really thinking, why is it that when a client wants to do something, say a development, they have to go to 3 different parties. They've got to find an architect, they've got to find an interior designer, they've got to find a brand agency, maybe someone else to do with marketing. And it becomes a very complicated process. So we were very inspired, I guess, by the idea of being able to offer all those creative services under one roof. So that was kind of the start of the vision. But we knew that we didn't want to be jack of all trades, master of none. So, we have our own specialties. Sam comes from construction/architecture background. I come from industrial design /architecture as well. Then combining that and finding the right specialist to work within the space. So we then brought on guys in brand, brought on more registered architects. So it became a conglomerate of specialists to service those disciplines.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to add to that?
Well, I think building on what John said, one of the earlier discussions was that if we sort of rewinded the process of design and construction and really how our cities came about. You look towards the Renaissance and you have guys like Brunelleschi and Bramante, Michelangelo, and they were kind of the term architect actually meant master builder, which meant that they were actually part of not only the build process, they designed it, they engineered it, they curated the art for it. The paintings on Sistine Chapel, that was all done by the architect himself. So in a sense, as creative thinkers or design thinkers, you need to be able to bleed across different disciplines and not just focus on your area of specialization, but actually consider all these sort of complementary areas that all form part of the overall experience. And so that was sort of the key motivation of us starting a multidisciplinary design studio.
Yeah. And I guess that's one of the key things that I wanted to focus on with you guys is just, I'm sort of amazed by how far you've taken the idea of being a multidisciplinary firm. So not only the breadth, but also the depth of the work that you produce. So I think multidisciplinary sort of gets thrown around a lot in the industry, almost as like a marketing term, right? We do interiors, we do architecture, we do brand, we do landscape, we do marketing, right? But the fact that you guys have a lot of distinguished work in all those different categories sort of intrigues me, because you said to me that you have that concern of being a master of none of the trades that you do, but it seems like you have been able to do very well or excel in most of them. So what is the reason behind that? Like, how have you been able to achieve something that's been very difficult for the rest of the market?
I think similar to what Sam was saying, we when we start a project, we try not to define it so much by typology or discipline, but really we always ask the question, how can we make this a meaningful design experience? Whether it is more of a product or a space or a brand. And I think when you ask that question, then the path or journey of getting to that end design, it might pull from a bit of architecture, a bit of product design, and so we end up with a design that actually speaks to the people that experience it, rather than just being focused on a particular discipline. So I think that's always something that drives us and enables us to speak into different parts of the design process.
Well, the other component is that we are never top down with the approach. So we never look at a problem or a project and instantly know the solution. We try and sort of collect as much information as we can to build up a brief or what the question actually is. We kind of want to define that first, and then how we find the answers is actually by implementing lateral thinking, to not be kind of boxed into a particular area of specialization, but actually bringing the right people, so building a good team to make sure that there's champions in every area to take charge of those particular projects.
Yeah.
And as a result, you get that sort of true collaboration between our brand director, our project architects, and our project team, to make sure that there is that rigor in the discussion, to produce an outcome that is tested.
Yeah. And I mean, my understanding is that this model isn't uncommon in other parts of the world. My understanding is, especially like say in Asia, where you do have these single firms that just do absolutely everything, and it's not only because of they're such a big firm and they have many different arms, but even smaller firms, they just carry all those disciplines and they can execute all those things. So what do you think would have been the barriers, I guess, in the Australian market? Say like how builders will subcontract everything, and then architects will only focus on a very niche part of their work, because even in architecture your work is very diverse as well. So what do you think is there a barrier in the market, or is it
I mean, we've been very blessed to have clients who believe in what we do, so that's been a great win for us. I think the culture in Melbourne anyways is that there's a high level of dependence on specialized individuals. One project could have 15 consultants, and they're only looking at very narrow paths of specialization. And I think our skill actually complements that sense of specialization, because we are able to sort of step back from the details within the problem and actually identify, well, this consultant is saying one thing, that other consultant is saying another thing.
right?
And so we then begin to build this context around them that enables their specializations to thrive, but we almost sort of curate that outcome, if you
Right.
like.
So what you're saying is you that being able to do all those things and having that context, and like you said, having that Renaissance mentality of being the master builder, the master planner, and having that overall vision allows you to work even better in the popular model, that is the popular architectural model in Melbourne or in Australia, where, like you said, there's 15, 20 consultants that focus on very niche things. So as the architect, as the project lead, it's that being the Renaissance firm has almost helped you work better within the existing model, it sounds like.
Yeah.
I find that really interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I mean, even as a master builder, you're not necessarily doing everything yourself. You're pulling from specialties that you have access to. And like Sam was saying, that's why what we do is very important, because it's about collaborating, bringing people in that have the expertise, that have the experience, and really like forming that unity and that bond, and then working towards a joint outcome together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to zoom into architecture. So even, like I said before, even in architecture, you have a very diverse and distinguished portfolio. I'd like to congratulate you guys on your recent award for the Blue International Pavilion.
Oh, thank you.
So that was, you know, a commercial project. It was a pavilion, and it's a very far departure from, say, some of your residential or single dwelling work. Is the same philosophy there in terms of your diversity within architecture, that you know that you want, that you're interested in, and you'd like to do great work in many different areas?
Well, specifically around Beulah Pavilion, that was actually one component of a bigger project, which was the South Bank by Beulah design competition. So we played a part in sort of the briefing process for the competition. We played a part in the events side of things for the competition, and one of the components was the pavilion. And in a sense, like we kind of helped the client, or we journeyed with the client through that design competition process to land at the need for a pavilion. Because we were saying that, you know, how could we actually make the process of a design competition, an international design competition, engaging for the locals. And so one of the ideas was when I kind of rewinded to my travels once upon a time in London, where David Blaine, the magician, was suspended on the side of River Thames for 40 days without food and water, and maybe there was a bit of a parallel condition with the architects participating in the design competition, that maybe they have gone for 40 days and 40 nights without food, just designing for this competition submission. So there was a joke sort of tabled on in the meetings that, you know, why don't we put all the architects in a glass box so that they could present almost to the public,
Right.
and the work would be on display to the public. And so that kind of kicked off a bit of a, you know, aspiration to create a sculptural pavilion along the river that engaged with the public, that became, you know, a space for presentation for the design competitions, but also a space of display, where the models, the art boards would actually be on public display for a 2-week period. So it wasn't really a standalone project. It was almost like a brainchild of you know, aspirations from a events perspective, from a design perspective, and from a public engagement perspective, and that kind of birthed this sort of brief to design a pavilion for the public.
Right. So again, what we're saying is, without all those other disciplines that you guys work in, and without, you know, that higher level thinking, that breadth of thought, that this perhaps wouldn't even have been possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I also want to move to some of your commercial clients in retail. So you have done work for a lot of retail brands, whether it's from, you know, the shop fitting design, the their branding, even marketing campaigns. So often arises a question, so I get asked often as well, what's the value in good design? I tell everyone design is valuable, design is valuable. So before we ask you guys what makes design valuable, or how do you define value in design, how does having that cohesive design experience add value for those clients?
Yeah, well, we see design as touching every part of your experience. Say we talk about retail, everything that you experience within a retail store is designed, whether it's the floor finish that you step on when you first enter the store, how easy it is to see the product on the shelves, how easy it is to experience the product of that brand. And so we see it as our duty to do due diligence and help these stores actually present their product well. So for that retail experience is how do you do that brand justice? And that comes down to every little detail, how do you feel when you go to try on a product or pay for your product? How's the joinery integrated so that you can browse through product easily? Is the atmosphere good so it makes you feel good when you're in that brand space? So design definitely plays an important part of every retail environment.
Yeah, and so it's not I guess it's not the norm, or the popular method to have one firm do all that work for you. So I mean, we have let's say in branding, we have very talented local branding firms, marketing firms, and whatnot. So I guess what does the client how does a client justify packaging, putting all that design work into one package for you guys? And where's is there a value add there?
Well, if we look at the leaders of each discipline, they have actually come from notable firms across Melbourne and beyond. So when our clients sort of come to us, they're not getting someone who's doing this for the first time, but they bring the expertise of where they were before into what they're doing today as well. We always tell, we've always been told that one of the key benefits about making sure that we're involved in a multidisciplinary sense is that there's lots of communication breakdown across many different parties. And because we're all working in the same space and we're constantly talking to each other, we're not waiting on emails, upon meetings, upon phone calls. If we need to collaborate on something, we're walking up to the person right there and then, and just having that conversation. So in a sense, that optimizes the design process. It makes it a little quicker. There's less mistakes. And also it's truly collaborative because we've worked together before in the past. We know how we work, and it's just almost making sure that and allowing the client to not be that central mailbox between 10 different parties to get a project done.
And beyond the workflows, you can see that play out in the actual design outcomes as well, because you get a more cohesive design story. For example, one of our recent projects was a luggage brand, and we designed everything from the luggage right through to now the retail store. And you can see that, the cohesiveness of the design language going from the luggage and transforming into then a physical space and a brand space. So that story of the brand gets told consistently, and it's not a breakdown between different parties trying to reinterpret that brand.
And I think Sam made a really good point there about, when you have 10 different consultants, it's so difficult to, the practical inefficiencies aside, it's so difficult to align align their intent and align their value and even their understanding of the project and the brief. So to have, one firm, even though you have leaders, leaders of every discipline within the firm, that naturally that there is a little more alignment in that process, and so it's less zigzaggy as you go down or go through the chain of design, and the outcome. I agree. I think it's pretty easy to imagine that the outcome is more cohesive, and it just joins together a lot better.
Yeah, definitely.
So then I want to sort of zoom in to residential architecture. So I've got a strong interest in residential building and architecture and design. So in the market, especially among retail clients, there's this. It's very hard for them to see the value or justify the value in architecture or design. So I just wanted to ask like what your thoughts are on that, and and why that is, I guess.
You're talking about residential design in the form of houses, like
Yeah, let's just say housing, standalone housing.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean that's always been a fairly challenging space for us because the clients, different clients see value differently. And the most common value is cost. And there is this sort of misconception that if you run with an architect, their fees are expensive, and then they will end up with you'd end up with very expensive build costs as well. And so they opt to go for sort of spec home builders or draftspeople to actually execute the design. What we have found sort of in our years of operation is that if the design process is not thought of properly and you make changes on the go, that ends up being an even more expensive exercise because you're not, you're kind of being, you're designing as you go in a sense, and that's when the builder comes in and hits you with variations fairly because it's not previously thought of. And that's when your construction costs might blow up by 10, 20, 30% because, or even more, because you're kind of making changes on the go, and that's a very dangerous thing to do. So having an architect involved in that house design process means that you can be sure that your design is up to a standard that you're happy with before you go out to the market, and fingers crossed you actually have that sort of worry-free process where the next time you see the house is when it's finished. We try and employ lots of ways to enable our clients to visualize that end outcome in an effort to eliminate later variations. So we provide 3D visualizations for our clients so that they can see the space. One other thing that we're doing now is to create VR experiences for our clients as well, so they can almost stand in this space and visualize what it'll look like in terms of scale, color, light quality, and you can almost test out your design before you build. And so while yes, architecture fees will be more expensive than spec home builders or draftspeople, the value that you get out of that actually de-risks your project later on.
So I agree with you. I think that there is I would almost say there's an issue in the perception of value in retail customers, where where the culture is where we value high ceilings and marble bench tops instead of say good design or a well-sealed home, right? So I think there definitely is like almost like a market education process or a challenge there, and that's something that I've found can be quite hard to overcome. So if I have a client where they just don't want to pay an architect 12-15% to run the job, well, as the person building the house, I'll end up helping them specify everything anyways, right? And I might not charge them, but the result is never as good as getting a design professional to even just to specify your materials or something, right? Obviously, I believe having someone involved from the very beginning is important, but from a construction standpoint, like not specifying the job before you start it or before you sign a contract is just an it's an unbelievable it's unbelievable, but it's also unbelievably common.
Yes.
It happens on every pretty much every, I'm just going to go out on a whim and say on 85% of residential
More actually,
killing.
the statistics
Yeah.
is
Okay.
higher.
We can cite the academia.
Yeah.
But like it's incredible that you rush into signing a contract without knowing without knowing what you're getting,
Yeah.
putting blind faith into the process, and then watching the process break down every single time.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
no one likes their builder after they finish building.
Yeah.
Most people hate their architects as well for some reason, right? And so if there's a problem with the model, you'd think that the clients who are spending all that money and taking on that risk, you would think that they wouldn't want to engage in that model. But it seems that it's just continuing and continuing. So I just I don't think we're gonna have any answers today, but
Yeah.
it's something that I find really quite interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've heard what ODO is. We've heard what where ODO came from. We've heard what ODO is now, and the ideology and sort of the philosophy behind the way you work. So I'm interested in what is next for you. Is the evolution of the brand and the business something that's important to you? Or like what's next? I guess.
Sure. Well, I think we've spent the first couple of years as a business establishing our foundations in design, good design principles and processes. For us, the next season, we've got this focus on, we're calling it Design for Life. And it's about taking everything we've learned and really trying to use design to intersect with key areas of I guess, future living. So whether that's, we're working in medical products, we're working in hotel spaces, where people eat, drink and sleep in, and really trying to intersect with the everyday journey of humans to make life a better experience as a whole. And then I guess on the deeper side of that, how does design solve problems? So whether it's through spaces that work, that improve mental health, whether it's products that help with injuries. So it's really that next stage is taking design to a more tactile level of engagement.
Yeah.
And I think building on that, it's design for life. The element of life is becoming less and less incidental. You've got to be really strategic and intentional with how you want to live life. Otherwise, your attention just gets spread across different forms of technology and media and distraction, if you like.
So many options.
Yeah, that's right.
So one of our key moves is to bring that greater consciousness back to what good life looks like. So like John mentioned before, we've got a luggage project on the go. We're designing sort of a whole suite of playgrounds at the moment. We are still doing a lot in that residential space as well, because yes, the basic elements of good life is a good home. And we have found that sort of combination of hospitality, leisure, and home has led us to hotels. And so the hotel component is a very fun typology for us to work in, because it is about this sense of almost a snippet of what life could be. And so if you're giving travelers a snippet of what good life looks like, then you're trying to pack design thinking into potentially a 24-hour or 48-hour journey. And so that's kind of a really sort of fun process for us at the moment, and we are getting greater definition in what that looks like.
So you've developed the philosophy of the way you work. You've developed this broad, multidisciplinary approach to design. You've achieved something that's very rare, which is you've gone deep in that breadth as well. And your next step is to go even deeper into that, and to make it sort of interrelate and make it work together even more. I'm not sure. I'm sure hotel designers are thinking about the experience, but the experience to you means
maybe something that's totally different or something that's even deeper than what you'd conventionally think about a hotel stay. Yeah. So.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's really interesting. Yeah. Well, is there anything else that you'd like the people to know? Is there anything else that you'd like to share with the people, or, I mean, how can they get in touch with you, or how can they approach you, or follow you?
Yeah, I mean, engage with us on social media. Our Instagram page has a lot of content, and we share a lot of stories on our culture, our work.
Yeah.
So follow One Design Office on Instagram.
Mm.
Just send us a message if you want to get in touch and know more.
Yeah.
And send us an email at info@odo.co, and we can kick off that conversation.
We're always open to collaborations or just hearing from people.
Yeah.
We want to improve how we work as well, so we're open to input from all areas.
Yeah. Yeah, like guys, I'd really encourage you guys to just send these guys a message if you want to have a chat with them. I've spoken to a lot of architects recently, and Sam and now John have been, exceptionally warm for being design professionals. Everyone else I've met has been lovely as well, but they've just been so accommodating, and they've been just so nice to me. So really just feel free to send them a message, and I'm sure they'd love to help you out and have a chat with whatever you need.
Cool.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Charlie.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you. We didn't offer you a coffee or something.
Yeah, right. It's okay. They're not. Yeah, it's okay.